The morning sun filtered through the kitchen window as Kate stirred her coffee with trembling hands. She had been awake since 3 in the morning, her mind racing with thoughts she couldn't quiet. The small apartment felt suffocating, filled with memories of better times when laughter echoed through these same rooms. William had left for his construction job 2 hours earlier, kissing her forehead gently before whispering that everything would work out somehow. Kate knew he was trying to stay strong for both of them, but she could see the weight of their struggles pressing down on his shoulders. The medical bills from her recent surgery had drained their savings completely. The stack of overdue notices sat on the counter like a constant reminder of their mounting debt. Each envelope seemed to mock their efforts to stay afloat in a world that felt determined to pull them under. She walked to the bedroom and opened the small jewelry box on her dresser. Inside lay her grandmother's wedding ring, the only valuable thing she owned from her family. The gold band had been passed down through 3 generations, each woman wearing it with pride and love. Kate's grandmother had survived the Great Depression, wearing this ring, never once considering selling it even when food was scarce. Her mother had worn it through 35 years of marriage, through good times and difficult ones. Now Kate found herself holding the precious ring, knowing what she had to do. The local pawn shop had quoted her $1,500 for it yesterday when she had quietly inquired. That money could keep them in their apartment for another 2 months and help with the medical debt that threatened to destroy their credit forever. She had told the pawnbroker she would think about it, but deep down she already knew her decision. The ring felt heavier than usual in her palm as she considered the weight of this choice. William didn't know about her plan. He would never agree to selling something so precious to her family history. He had grown up poor and understood the value of keeping family treasures no matter how desperate things became. His own father had sold his grandfather's pocket watch during hard times and regretted it for the rest of his life. Kate carefully wrapped the ring in a soft cloth and placed it in her purse. She would go to the pawn shop after William left for work, handle the transaction quickly, and deposit the money before he returned home. She would tell him she had picked up some freelance writing work online. The lie tasted bitter in her mouth, but she couldn't see any other way forward. The apartment felt eerily quiet as she prepared to leave. She paused at the front door, looking back at their modest home filled with second-hand furniture and dreams they had built together. They had been so happy when they first moved in 3 years ago, planning their future and believing that love could conquer any obstacle life threw their way. Kate locked the door behind her and walked toward downtown, her footsteps heavy with the burden of her secret decision. The pawnshop owner, a kind elderly man named Mr. Peterson, recognized her immediately when she entered. He had been expecting her return and handled the transaction with gentle understanding, not asking questions about her obvious emotional struggle. The money felt strange in her hands as she walked to the bank. $1,500 in cash seemed like so little for something that meant everything to her family's history. But it was enough to buy them time, enough to keep their small world from completely falling apart while they figured out their next steps. Kate spent the rest of the morning applying for additional freelance work online, trying to create legitimate income that could explain the sudden improvement in their finances. She crafted several writing samples and submitted applications to various content websites, hoping that at least one would lead to actual paid work. When evening approached, she began preparing William's favorite meal using ingredients she hadn't been able to afford in weeks. The smell of pot roast filled their small kitchen, creating an atmosphere of normalcy that felt both comforting and heartbreaking. She had bought groceries with part of the money from her grandmother's ring, telling herself that they both needed proper nutrition to face whatever challenges lay ahead. William's key turned in the lock at exactly 6:30, just like every evening. Kate heard his work boots on the stairs and forced herself to smile naturally. She had practiced this moment all day, rehearsing how she would tell him about her supposed new writing opportunities without revealing the painful truth behind their sudden financial breathing room. William arrived home that evening exhausted, but trying to maintain his usual cheerful demeanor. The construction site had been particularly demanding, and his supervisor had hinted that layoffs might be coming due to the company losing a major contract. He hadn't mentioned this possibility to Kate because she was already carrying too much worry on her shoulders. As he climbed the stairs to their apartment, The aroma of home-cooked food surprised him. They had been living on pasta and canned vegetables for weeks, carefully stretching every dollar. The smell of pot roast seemed impossible given their current financial situation, but he didn't want to question Kate's efforts to create something special for their evening together. Kate greeted him at the door with a brightness in her eyes that he hadn't seen in months. She helped him out of his work jacket and led him to the kitchen table, which was set with their good dishes for the first time since her surgery. The sight both warmed his heart and created a nagging concern about how they could afford such a meal. During dinner, Kate carefully explained her story about landing several freelance writing assignments through an online platform. She showed him the applications she had submitted and spoke enthusiastically about the potential income from these opportunities. William listened with growing relief, grateful that something positive was finally happening for them. He noticed that Kate seemed more relaxed than she had been in weeks, but there was something in her manner that felt slightly forced. She was trying too hard to appear excited about the writing work, and her explanations contained more detail than necessary. These were small things that another person might not notice, but William had known Kate for 7 years and could read her subtle expressions like a familiar book. After dinner, they sat together on their worn couch watching an old movie on television. Kate curled up against William's side, and he felt some of the tension leaving his own shoulders for the first time in months. Perhaps their luck was finally beginning to turn around. Perhaps they would be able to catch up on their bills and start rebuilding their financial security. The next few days followed a similar pattern. Kate continued applying for writing work with genuine determination while secretly paying their most urgent bills with money from her grandmother's ring. She managed their finances carefully, making the money stretch as far as possible while creating the appearance of gradual improvement in their situation. William began to believe that Kate's writing opportunities were real when she showed him small payments beginning to arrive from her applications. What he didn't realize was that she had used part of the pawnshop money to create these fake payments, transferring small amounts into her account to support her cover story. The deception weighed heavily on Kate's conscience, but she convinced herself that it was temporary. Once she established actual income from her writing efforts, she would find a way to buy back her grandmother's ring. Mr. Peterson had assured her that he would hold it for 90 days before putting it up for sale, giving her time to reclaim the precious family heirloom. Kate's writing applications began bearing real fruit as several companies responded with small assignments. The work didn't pay much, but it provided legitimate income that helped maintain her fabricated explanation for their improved circumstances. She threw herself into the writing with desperate energy, determined to make her lie become truth through sheer effort and determination. William started talking about their future again, something he hadn't done since Kate's medical crisis began. He mentioned possibly taking a weekend trip to visit his sister in the neighboring state, or maybe even starting to save for a down payment on a small house. These conversations filled Kate with both joy and guilt, knowing that their current stability was built on the sacrifice of something irreplaceable. 2 weeks after selling the ring, Kate received her first substantial writing assignment worth $300. The project involved creating content for a small business website, and the client was pleased enough with her work to offer additional projects. For the first time since her deception began, Kate felt a glimmer of hope that she might actually be able to buy back her grandmother's ring. She calculated that if she could secure enough writing work over the next 2 months, she would have enough money to reclaim the ring before Mr. Peterson's 90-day hold period expired. The math was tight, but it seemed possible if she could maintain her current pace of finding new clients and completing projects efficiently. William celebrated Kate's writing success by bringing home flowers one evening, spending money they couldn't afford on a small gesture of pride and love. Kate accepted the flowers with genuine happiness mixed with overwhelming guilt. His faith in her supposed achievements made her deception feel even more painful, yet she couldn't find a way to tell him the truth without destroying his newfound optimism. The apartment felt more like home again as their relationship regained some of its former lightness. They laughed together while cooking dinner and made plans for small luxuries they might afford in the coming months. Kate treasured these moments while simultaneously dreading the day when her lie might be discovered or when she might have to confess the truth about her grandmother's ring. 3 weeks into Kate's secret plan, William came home from work with troubling news that he could no longer hide. His construction company had indeed lost their major contract, and layoffs would begin the following week. As one of the newer employees, William was likely to be among the first to go. The supervisor had pulled him aside to give him advance warning so he could start looking for other opportunities immediately. Kate's heart sank as she listened to William explain their new crisis. Just when she thought she might be able to reclaim her grandmother's ring, their financial situation was about to become even more desperate. The small amount of writing income she had established wouldn't be nearly enough to cover their expenses if William lost his job. William apologized repeatedly as if the impending layoff was somehow his fault. He had been a dedicated employee who never missed work and always stayed late when needed. The construction industry was simply facing difficult times, and newer workers were expendable regardless of their work ethic or commitment. That night, Kate lay awake calculating their options while William tossed restlessly beside her. Her writing income might cover their groceries and utilities, but it wouldn't come close to paying their rent and medical debt without William's salary. The money from her grandmother's ring had already been spent on catching up their overdue bills, leaving them with no savings to fall back on during unemployment. Kate realized she would need to find additional sources of income immediately. She began researching every possible online work opportunity, from virtual assistants to data entry to freelance graphic design. The internet was full of promises for easy money, but legitimate opportunities required time to develop, and time was something they didn't have. William spent his evenings after work searching job listings and submitting applications to every construction company in the area. The market was flooded with experienced workers, and many positions paid less than his current job. Some companies weren't hiring at all, having implemented their own cost-cutting measures in response to the economic downturn affecting their industry. The stress began taking its toll on both of them in different ways. William became quieter and more withdrawn, spending hours on his laptop searching for work opportunities. Kate threw herself into writing projects with frantic energy, accepting every small assignment she could find regardless of how little it paid per hour of effort required. They stopped talking about weekend trips or future plans, focusing instead on the immediate challenge of survival. Their conversations became limited to practical matters like which bills to pay first and which could be delayed another month. The joy that had briefly returned to their relationship faded back into the grim determination of people fighting to stay afloat. Kate began staying up late into the night working on writing projects after William fell asleep. She would sit at their small kitchen table with her laptop, the glow of the screen illuminating her tired face as she crafted articles about topics she had never heard of before accepting the assignments. Her eyes burned from staring at the screen, but she pushed through the fatigue knowing that every completed project brought a few more dollars toward their survival. During the day, while William was still at work, Kate expanded her job search. Beyond writing, she applied for retail positions, restaurant work, and office temp jobs. Most applications disappeared into digital silence, but a few resulted in interviews at businesses that paid minimum wage and offered no benefits. These jobs wouldn't solve their financial problems, but they might provide enough additional income to prevent complete disaster. William's last day at the construction company arrived sooner than expected when the supervisor decided to expedite the layoffs. He came home in the middle of the afternoon carrying a small box of personal items from his desk, his face showing the strain of unemployment in a difficult job market. His final paycheck would cover their rent for one more month, after which their situation would become truly desperate. Kate hugged William tightly when he walked through the door, feeling the weight of her hidden sacrifice more heavily than ever. If he knew she had sold her grandmother's ring to give them this small breathing room, he might blame himself even more for their current predicament. She couldn't bear the thought of adding to his feelings of failure and inadequacy. That evening, they sat together making lists of every possible expense they could eliminate from their budget. They would cancel their internet service except for Kate's phone data plan, which she needed for work. They would switch to the cheapest possible cell phone plans and eliminate all subscription services they had been using for entertainment. William suggested they might need to consider moving to a cheaper apartment, even though breaking their lease would require paying penalties they couldn't afford. Kate agreed to start looking at options while privately hoping that her writing income might increase enough to make such a drastic move unnecessary. The apartment felt smaller and more oppressive as they faced the reality of their shrinking options. Every sound from neighboring units seemed louder, every crack in the walls more noticeable. The space that had once represented their independence and future now felt like a burden they might not be able to carry much longer. Kate watched William scrolling through job listings on his phone, his shoulders hunched with worry and determination. She wanted desperately to tell him about her grandmother's ring, to share the burden of her sacrifice and let him know that she would do anything to protect their small life together. But the words wouldn't come, trapped behind her fear of making him feel even worse about their situation. 2 months had passed since William lost his construction job, and their situation had grown increasingly desperate, despite both of their tireless efforts to find work. Kate's writing income had grown modestly, but remained far short of what they needed to maintain their basic expenses. William had managed to find occasional day labor through a temp agency, but the work was unpredictable and paid poorly compared to his previous position. The 90-day hold period at the pawn shop was rapidly approaching its end, and Kate knew she would never accumulate enough money to buy back her grandmother's ring. She had managed to save only $400 toward the $1,500 she would need, despite working 12-hour days and accepting every writing assignment available to her. Kate had taken a part-time job at a local coffee shop to supplement her writing income, working early morning shifts before starting her computer work at home. The additional income helped with groceries and utilities, but their rent remained a constant source of stress. They had already received one late notice from their landlord, who had been understanding but firm about the need for timely payments going forward. William's pride had taken a severe beating as weeks passed without steady employment. He had always been the primary breadwinner in their relationship, and his inability to provide financial security was eating away at his sense of self-worth. Kate could see him withdrawing into himself, becoming more quiet and distant despite her efforts to maintain their emotional connection. The stress was affecting their relationship in ways neither of them wanted to acknowledge. Small disagreements became arguments more quickly than before, and they spent less time talking about anything beyond their immediate survival needs. The apartment felt tense even during their few quiet moments together, filled with unspoken worries and growing resentment about their circumstances. Kate made several trips to the pawn shop during this period, each time hoping that Mr. Peterson might offer a payment plan or some alternative arrangement that would allow her to keep her grandmother's ring in the family. The kind shop owner was sympathetic, but explained that his business couldn't operate on extended payment plans for individual items, especially given the uncertain economic climate affecting many of his customers. During her final visit, Mr. Peterson gently explained that several customers had inquired about the ring, and he would need to put it up for sale within the next week, unless Kate could pay the full redemption amount. She thanked him for his patience and understanding while her heart broke with the realization that her family heirloom would soon belong to a stranger. William noticed Kate's increasing sadness during this time, but attributed it to their overall financial stress rather than any specific loss. He tried to comfort her with small gestures like bringing home her favorite tea or suggesting they watch movies together on his laptop. But Kate found it difficult to accept his kindness while keeping such a significant secret from him. The coffee shop job provided Kate with a different perspective on their situation as she served customers from various economic backgrounds. She met other people struggling with unemployment, medical debt, and housing insecurity, which helped her realize that their problems were part of larger economic forces beyond their individual control. This understanding provided some comfort, but didn't solve their immediate financial crisis. William finally received a promising job interview with a construction company that specialized in residential renovations. The position paid slightly less than his previous job, but offered steady work and the possibility of advancement within the company. He prepared extensively for the interview, researching the company's recent projects and practicing answers to likely questions. Kate felt a mixture of hope and anxiety as William prepared for this opportunity. If he got the job, they might be able to stabilize their finances and begin rebuilding their savings. However, she knew that her grandmother's ring would be lost forever regardless of their future financial recovery, and she hadn't found the courage to tell William about her sacrifice. The morning of William's interview, Kate woke up early to make him a good breakfast and help him prepare for what could be a turning point in their circumstances. She pressed his best shirt and made sure his portfolio of work samples was organized professionally. They both understood that this opportunity might be their last chance to avoid more drastic measures like bankruptcy or moving back in with family members. William left for the interview with a confidence Kate hadn't seen in months, and she spent the day anxiously waiting for news while completing writing assignments and preparing for her evening shift at the coffee shop. She found herself praying to her grandmother's memory, asking for guidance and forgiveness for selling the precious ring that had connected her to 3 generations of strong women in her family. That afternoon, Kate received a call from Mr. Peterson, informing her that he would be putting her grandmother's ring up for sale the following morning. A regular customer had expressed serious interest and would likely purchase it immediately once it became available. Kate thanked him for the call and hung up, feeling as though she had lost a piece of her identity along with the family treasure. When William returned from his interview, his excitement was tempered by the knowledge that the company was interviewing several candidates and wouldn't make a decision for another week. The interview had gone well, and he felt confident about his qualifications, but the uncertainty meant they would continue living in financial limbo for at least another 7 days. Kate celebrated William's positive interview experience while privately mourning the impending loss of her grandmother's ring. She had decided she would tell him about her sacrifice after he received news about the job, whether positive or negative. The secret had become too heavy to carry alone, and she needed his understanding and support to process the grief of losing something so precious to her family's history. The week following William's job interview felt like the longest 7 days of their relationship. Kate worked her coffee shop shifts and writing assignments with mechanical efficiency, while secretly grieving the loss of her grandmother's ring. Mr. Peterson had called to confirm that the ring had been purchased by his regular customer, and Kate felt as though a piece of her family's history had vanished forever. William spent his days applying for backup positions while anxiously waiting for news from the renovation company. He had researched the business extensively and genuinely wanted to work for them, not just because he needed employment, but because their approach to residential construction aligned with his own values about quality craftsmanship and customer service. Kate found herself unable to concentrate on her writing projects as she wrestled with the decision of when and how to tell William about her sacrifice. She had rehearsed the conversation dozens of times in her mind, but every scenario ended with William feeling guilty and responsible for her loss. The thought of causing him additional pain kept her from speaking the truth that burned inside her chest. Their conversations during this waiting period were stilted and careful, both of them trying to maintain optimism while preparing for disappointment. They talked about practical matters like which bills to prioritize if William didn't get the job, but avoided discussing their deeper fears about bankruptcy or losing their apartment. Kate's coffee shop manager, a woman named Susan, who had become something of a mentor during her employment there, noticed her emotional struggle and offered to listen if Kate needed someone to talk to. Susan had raised 3 children as a single mother and understood the weight of financial stress on relationships and personal well-being. During a quiet moment at work, Kate found herself confiding in Susan about the medical bills and unemployment situation, though she still couldn't bring herself to mention her grandmother's ring. Susan listened with genuine compassion and shared her own experiences with difficult financial periods, emphasizing that such challenges often made relationships stronger if couples could maintain honest communication. Susan's advice about honesty resonated deeply with Kate, who realized that her well-intentioned deception was creating distance between her and William at a time when they most needed each other's support. She decided that she would tell him about the ring that evening, regardless of whether he had received news about the job. William arrived home that afternoon looking exhausted and discouraged. He had spent the day at the temp agency office waiting for day labor opportunities, but no work had been available. The agency coordinator had suggested he might want to consider expanding his search to include moving companies and landscaping crews, positions that paid even less than construction temp work. Kate prepared William's favorite meal with ingredients she had purchased using her coffee shop tips, wanting to create a comfortable atmosphere for the difficult conversation ahead. She had decided to tell him everything: the pawn shop transaction, the fake writing payments, and the recent loss of the ring to another buyer. As they sat down to eat, William's phone rang with a call from the renovation company. Kate watched, his face change from resignation to excitement as he listened to the job offer. The company was impressed with his experience and references, and they wanted him to start work the following Monday at a salary that would fully cover their basic expenses. William hung up the phone and swept Kate into a joyful embrace, spinning her around their small kitchen while both of them laughed with relief and celebration. For the first time in months, their future seemed secure, and the weight of constant financial worry began to lift from their shoulders. The timing of William's good news made Kate's planned confession even more difficult. She didn't want to diminish his happiness or create guilt about her sacrifice by revealing the truth on such a positive day. She told herself she would wait a few days until their celebration settled into normal routine, then find the right moment to share her secret. They spent the evening making plans for their improved financial situation, talking about paying off their medical debt and rebuilding their emergency savings. William mentioned wanting to take Kate out for a proper dinner to celebrate his new job, and she agreed while feeling the familiar pang of guilt about her hidden sacrifice. Kate lay awake that night listening to William sleep peacefully for the first time in weeks. His breathing was calm and regular, no longer interrupted by the restless tossing that had characterized his unemployment stress. She felt grateful that he would be able to return to work with dignity and purpose, even as she mourned the loss of her family treasure. The next few days passed in a blur of celebration and preparation for William's return to regular employment. Kate continued working her coffee shop shifts and writing assignments, but with less desperate urgency now that they had steady income on the horizon. She told herself that her sacrifice had been worthwhile because it had given them the time. William needed to find this better opportunity. William's first week at the renovation company exceeded his expectations in every way. His new co-workers welcomed him warmly, and his supervisor praised his attention to detail and professional attitude. The work was challenging but satisfying, involving custom home improvements that required both technical skill and creative problem-solving. Kate found herself genuinely happy for the first time since her surgery as she watched William regain his confidence and sense of purpose. His success at the new job validated her belief that her sacrifice had been necessary and worthwhile, even though she still struggled with the loss of her grandmother's ring. As their financial situation stabilized, Kate began to believe that she might never need to tell William about the ring. Their relationship was healing from the stress of unemployment, and revealing her sacrifice now seemed likely to cause unnecessary pain without providing any practical benefit to their circumstances. 3 months into William's new job, their financial recovery was progressing steadily. They had caught up on all their overdue bills and were beginning to rebuild their emergency savings account. Kate had decided to continue her coffee shop job part-time while reducing her freelance writing commitments, finding that she enjoyed the social interaction with customers and co-workers. William had received praise from his supervisor and a small raise that reflected his valuable contributions to several successful renovation projects. His confidence had fully returned, and he was talking enthusiastically about learning new skills that could lead to advancement within the company. Their relationship had regained its former warmth and intimacy as the constant stress of financial insecurity finally lifted. Kate had convinced herself that her secret about the ring could remain buried forever. William seemed happier than he had been in years, and she couldn't see any benefit in telling him about her sacrifice when it would only create guilt and sadness. She had made peace with her decision and rarely thought about the ring anymore, focusing instead on their bright future together. One Saturday morning, William surprised Kate by suggesting they visit some antique shops in the historic district downtown. He had been thinking about finding a special gift to commemorate their survival through the difficult period, something meaningful that they could keep as a reminder of their resilience and love for each other. Kate agreed to the outing, though. Antique shops made her think of her grandmother and the family treasures that had been passed down through generations. She pushed these thoughts aside and focused on enjoying William's excitement as they walked through the charming downtown area hand in hand. The first two antique shops they visited contained mostly furniture and decorative items that were beyond their budget, but the owners were friendly and didn't pressure them to make purchases. William was particularly interested in vintage tools and construction equipment, while Kate found herself drawn to jewelry displays despite her mixed feelings about such items. At the third shop, a small establishment run by an elderly couple, William wandered toward the tool section, while Kate examined a display case of vintage jewelry near the front window. The afternoon sunlight streaming through the glass illuminated the various rings, necklaces, and bracelets arranged on black velvet trays. Kate's breath caught in her throat when she spotted a familiar gold band nestled among other rings in the corner of the display case. The delicate engraving around the band was unmistakable, and she knew immediately that she was looking at her grandmother's wedding ring. The antique shop owners had apparently purchased it from the person who bought it at Mr. Peterson's pawn shop. Her hands trembled as she stared at the precious ring so close yet still beyond her reach. The price tag attached to the tray showed that the antique dealers were asking $2,200 for the ring, nearly $500 more than she had received from the pawn shop. Even with their improved finances, such a purchase would require careful planning and saving. William noticed Kate's intense focus on the jewelry display and approached to see what had captured her attention. As he looked over her shoulder at the various pieces, Kate struggled to maintain her composure while her heart pounded with a mixture of joy and anguish at finding her family treasure so unexpectedly. The shop owner, a kind woman in her 70s, noticed their interest in the jewelry and approached to offer assistance. She explained that the rings in that particular display had come from estate sales and private collectors, each with its own unique history and craftsmanship details that made them special. William asked about the gold band that Kate had been studying, and the shop owner lifted it from the display to show them the intricate engraving work. She mentioned that the ring appeared to be from the early 20th century and had clearly been cherished by its previous owners, based on its excellent condition despite its age. Kate felt tears welling up in her eyes as she watched William examine her grandmother's ring. The shop owner noticed her emotional response and gently asked if the piece had special meaning for her. Unable to maintain her composure any longer, Kate began crying softly as months of hidden grief and guilt finally overwhelmed her carefully maintained facade. William immediately wrapped his arms around Kate, confused by her sudden emotional breakdown, but instinctively offering comfort and support. He guided her to a quiet corner of the shop while the understanding owners gave them privacy to work through whatever had triggered such an intense response. Through her tears, Kate finally told William the truth about her grandmother's ring. She explained how she had sold it to the pawn shop to pay their bills during his unemployment, how she had lied about the freelance writing income, and how she had watched helplessly as the ring was sold to another buyer when she couldn't raise enough money for redemption. William listened in stunned silence as Kate revealed the full extent of her sacrifice and deception. She apologized repeatedly for lying to him and explained that she had been trying to protect him from additional guilt about their financial crisis. The weight of carrying such a significant secret for months had been almost unbearable, and she felt simultaneously relieved and terrified to finally share the truth. When Kate finished her confession, William was quiet for several long minutes, as he processed the magnitude of what she had done for their survival. He felt overwhelmed by gratitude for her sacrifice, anger at himself for not knowing about her pain, and deep sadness that she had felt unable to share such a burden with him when they had always promised to face difficulties together. William gently took Kate's face in his hands and told her how sorry he was that she had carried this secret alone. He explained that while he wished she had trusted him with the truth from the beginning, he understood why she had made the choices she did during such a desperate time. Her sacrifice had given them the opportunity for him to find his new job, and he would be forever grateful for her courage and love. The shop owners, who had been watching from a respectful distance, quietly approached and asked if there was anything they could do to help. When William explained the situation, they were moved by Kate's story and offered to hold the ring for 30 days while the couple considered whether they wanted to purchase it, understanding that such a decision required careful financial planning. William And Kate left the antique shop that afternoon with new honesty between them and a renewed appreciation for the depth of their love and commitment. Kate felt lighter than she had in months, finally free from the burden of her secret, while William marveled at the strength and sacrifice of the woman he had chosen to share his life with.